Okay, which inequality best represents the range from the graph shown? Range is your y, so we're only looking at the y-axis, not the x. So range is my height, and we need to go bottom, which is at -7, to top, which is at 3. So I know we can cross off A and B. And I also realize there's an open dot at -7, so that's just going to get the less than. So C is my answer. Okay, this one says choose two statements about this. Well, let's look in the calculator. So I'm going to type it in, y equals 3 to the x power. And it looks like this. So what I need y'all to realize, that goes to the left forever, and then it slowly goes to the right forever, and also up forever. So because it goes left and right forever, my domain is all real numbers. Okay, my range, on the other hand, it does go up forever, like we were just seeing. We scrolled up, 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 but it never goes below 0. Even if I zoom out, it never goes down here below 0. So this is y is greater than 0 because it goes up. Now, it is not equal to because of the asymptote. So we have to find our answers that say this. Well, domain is just all real numbers. I don't have any symbols. I don't have a 0. None of that. So this is wrong because that's greater than 0 or equal to 0. That would be this symbol, and that we don't have that. This one is also wrong because this one says greater than 0. I don't have that. So both of those are wrong. It's just all real numbers. That's it. Okay, this one says y is greater than 0, which just means all real y values are greater than 0, not equal to. This one says equal to, so that one's wrong. This one is my answer. Okay, looking at number 3, which of the following functions model an exponential decay? So the big thing to remember is that our decay factor has to be less between 0, I don't know why I said that, decay factor between 0 and I'm going to use that 1. Oh, it's B. There you go. Sorry, losing my mind. Has to be between 0 and 1. Well, this is 1.66, so that's not decay. But if we forget, y'all, use your calculator. So if I type that answer, 3 parentheses 1.66, that is growth. So A is wrong because that's growth. Now B is 3, and then it says 0.77. That is decay. From left to right, it goes down. So remember, we want it left to right. That's how we read our graph, just like a book. And it needs to go down like this. So B is an answer. Okay, now we're going to look. Well, 80 divided by 40 is 2. 40 divided by 80 is a half. So this is also decay. This is growth. And this is linear because there's no x as the exponent. So that's wrong also. Okay, for the function here, again, we have an equation. Let's type it in. Actually, I'm not going to type this one. We're going to talk about just the equation. So it says, can be used to determine the amount of Teslas in Houston after X years. Well, the growth factor of the Tesla is 1.16. Well, this is my growth factor. So that is true. Your factor is just whatever's inside your parentheses. This says decrease, but I know this is bigger than 1, so it's actually going to increase, so that's wrong. This is the initial amount is 116. Well, I know that my initial amount is 300, so that's wrong. The initial amount of Teslas in Houston increased at a rate of 16%. Well, increase would be 1 plus 16 divided by 100 is 0.6, so that would be 1.16, which is true. That is what we have. And this is the amount of Teslas after the first year is 300. Well, this is my starting point, not after 1 year, so that is wrong. Okay, look at number 5. It says the table below represents some points on an exponential function, which is the following. So this is just looking for my factor. What's my growth factor? So think back to when we learned this. Well, factor means multiply. So we're wanting to know what multiplies to give me that. But to find it, remember you have to go backwards and do the opposite. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we do bottom, divide, top, which that's not an option. So we can try this one. 4.5 divide 3, which is an option. So B is my answer. Okay, this one says write an equation that models the following situation. Tiffany bought a phone case for $6, so it started at $6, and the value depreciates. So 1 minus 14 divided by 100 to get my percent is 0.14. Okay, so using my calculator, get 0.86, so 0.86. There's my answer. Okay, now 7 does not give me enough information to do plus sign table because I don't have this second point. That's what I'm looking for. But it does give me my starting point, and I know it's my starting point because x is 0. So it also gives me, it decreases, so 1 minus 12%, which is 0.12. And so I'm not even going to simplify this one. Y starts at 15,000. 1 minus 0.12 to the x power. And we're going to type it in. Okay, so I realize we have to zoom way out for this one. And sometimes we struggle finding our answers when we have to zoom way out. So what I want you to realize is we're looking for where x equals 5 because time is 5. So I can type x equals 5 here. And sometimes we can zoom out and the gray dot will show up where they touch. Click on it. There it goes, right there. So there's my answer, which is 7915, or if I round it's 7916. So B, or C, sorry, is my answer. However, sometimes y'all really struggle with zooming and finding that point, so you can replace the x with 5, which gives us the same answer. Or you can build the table and type 5, which also gives us the same answer. And also zooms it correctly, so it's always kind of smart to build the table. Okay, let's look at number 8. Number 8, I think the best thing to do is to build a table. It gives us pretty points, so we have the point 0, 2, and then 1, 6. Okay, and we can type it in. We can press our fancy button, and it says exponential. So there's my equation. So it starts at 2, and my factor is 3. Now, one thing I do want you to realize is it's never, your growth factor will never be 1, because that would never grow. That would stay the same. Okay, but this is growth, which needs a number bigger than 1, so 3 was my only answer, and it started at 2. So if we use that concept, here it starts at 4. And this is decay, so I need a number smaller than 1, so 1/2 is my answer, which you could also have used the table. Here we have an equation. Let's type it in. We're looking for the asymptote, and we're going to type it in. Okay, I'm going to click home. And so remember, your asymptote is where it gets really, really close and it almost turns into it. So this is almost turning into 0. However, if we forget, well, you've only learned y equals asymptotes. You've only learned horizontal. Okay, and if you forget, you can always type them in. Like if we thought it was x equals 0, well, x equals 0. That cuts it, and we haven't learned vertical. So we know it's y equals. And say you thought it was 6. Well, that is not where it flatlines. That's not where it turns into the ground, okay? So that's not my answer, but if I try 0, that is where it flatlines and they merge together. So it looks like they merge together. So it's y equals 0. Okay, here we're going to write an equation. This one says this year the number of students who participated in sports was 800. So that's my starting point. Each year the number of students who participate increased by 10%. So 1 plus, and we have to turn 10% into a decimal. And here's my equation. Okay, now it says the graph passes to the point 1, 800. Well, your starting point, remember, is where x is 0. So that's not true. The reason I come up with the equation is because you can type it in and prove most of these. The graph has a constant rate of change. That is not true because a rate of change would be a slope, like a linear line, and this is not a linear line. Okay, the y-intercept of the graph is 800, which is true. We just wrote it right there. Again, you could type it in your calculator. Here's where you do want to type it in your calculator. So 800, 1 plus 0.10. Okay, so I'm going to build my table, and I see 2,968, which is true. And this says the graph does not touch the x-axis, and remember, it does have an asymptote at 0, so it doesn't ever touch the x-axis, which is also true. Okay, number 11 is super important to write an equation. I want you to realize it says it starts at 200,000, so I know that G and J are not my answer because those both start at 100,000. These do start at 200,000, so we're between F and H. Now, if I write an equation, it starts at 200,000, and it increases at a rate of 6%. So if I divide that by 100, please, please, please check your work when you're doing that. It's 0.06. This is the biggest mistake I've seen today. And when we've typed it in today, y'all, I've had a lot of people choose the wrong answer because of what it looks like. Okay, so if I zoom way out, it looks super steep. So a lot of people have been like, oh, it's obviously H. It's very, very steep, but it's not. So always check your table and look at 2 points. So 0 is 200,000. 1 is 212. Okay, sorry, I don't want to look at 1. I want to look at 5 because this is 5. So 267. So it's between 200 and 300,000. So it's somewhere between here. Well, the only one that has that is actually F. So yes, it looked really steep, but you have to pay attention. This is zoomed in different than the way we zoomed in. So that's why that's the case. Okay, number 12, big thing. This is not my starting point. Okay, starting point is 0. So this is not this number. That is wrong. Please, please, please use your calculator. I'm trying to rush the bell, so I'm going to just type 2 points, but always check all your points, please. See, oh, I don't know 0, sorry. 1, 2, 1, 6. Actually, I'm going to type all of them. Okay, we're going to zoom in, and we're going to click our fancy button. We're going to change it to exponential, and then we will have to round. So again, this is the closest to my starting point. But my other number is 0.84, which the closest would be this because it's rounded. Okay, 13. Again, this is a calculator problem. I'm going to type in the calculator, the table. Okay, and we're going to zoom into those points. And it says about how many kilometers will be covered after 7 years. Well, remember, years is my x, so x equals 7, and I'm going to type it in. And because it's zoomed nice from the table, we should be able to find our answer pretty easy. There's my answer, which is 144.9, so my answer is 145. Here, this one says which graph has a domain of all real numbers less than 2. Well, domain is my x values, so I'm only looking at x. Well, it says all real numbers less than 2, so I know that my boundary is 2. So I know D and C are wrong, okay, because those don't touch x is 2. Okay, and less than numbers for x are to the left, and the only arrow that goes that direction is A. Okay, number 15, you can check this one in your calculator. The y value of it's just your starting point, which is 2. But if you forget that, you can type it in your calculator and click on it. Here, it's asking for the rate of change, which is just your slope, y'all. So we have to solve for y. So I'm going to move my x, divide by y. And remember, whatever's touching, but 2 negatives makes A positive, so that simplifies to 7 over 12, which is D.